Good evening and welcome. This is Biz1st in Focus. Nice to have you on board as usual on Sunday at 9:30 p.m. on MTV. This evening I have a special guest. He is the chairman of the Asia Pacific Council of the American Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Jackson Cox. So very good evening and welcome to the show.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure to have you on board as well, Mr. Cox. So starting off, tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do?
Okay, well, it's a volunteer position as being chairman of APCAC, the Asia Pacific Council of American Chambers of Commerce. I was elected to the position in March at our annual meeting in Singapore. And APCAC is the association of 29 American Chambers of Commerce in the Asia Pacific region. And it's a region that spans all the way in the south from Australia, New Zealand, north to Mongolia, and in the east to Japan and Guam, all the way west to Uzbekistan and Pakistan, and everything in between. And collectively, those 29 American Chambers of Commerce account for 50,000 American workers in the region, over 15,000 companies, and trade and investment volumes over $600 billion a year. So collectively, it's a very powerful organization.
You appointed to the post in March 2015. What sort of changes do you envisage in the next few years?
Well, you know, the future in Asia is very optimistic. The global economy is going to grow by $36 trillion in the next 5 years. More than half of that growth is going to happen right here in the Asia Pacific region. And APCAC wants to position itself as a leader for the American business community in the region. We have major trade agreements being negotiated at this time, and each of these agreements have difficult local dynamics in each economy in the region, and certainly difficult political dynamics in the United States as well. So APCAC will be a platform to tell the stories of what American commerce is doing in the region, building jobs, building growth, creating opportunities.
In terms of what you do as the chairman of the Asia Pacific Council of American Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Cox, what do you want to do? What changes do you envisage as the chairman of APCAC now?
Well, I think we need to do a better job at telling stories. In the United States, earlier this year, there was a very bitter debate about trade promotion authority. And it was really a debate about trade and free trade and free trade agreements. And I think what we have going on here are good businesses doing good work in the region, but they're focusing on doing their job. And so what APCAC and what I want to do as chairman of APCAC is to leverage these stories into support for good policies, both domestically in our host economies and back in the United States.
What is the potential that you see in Asia in terms of building and extending the American commerce or industries in the region? What sort of potential do you see?
Well, we have AmChams in literally every market, and each of these AmChams are building partnerships between American businesses and local businesses, and it runs the gamut from aviation and big business to very small businesses dealing with the development of local applications for smartphones. So you run everything in the middle. The real message here is that we believe that American companies make great partners for local businesses, and because they bring access to good technology, good innovation, and good partnerships for growth.
Do you all see governments assisting organizations like the American Chamber of Commerce to come in, invest, and bring in that new technology, especially in a country like Sri Lanka?
Well, I think all AmChams are independent and from each other and from the U.S. government. AmChams are private sector led, and I think that's very important to remember because the private sector really is and has the answers to a lot of the commercial challenges in these countries. And I know that that's true here in Sri Lanka as well. But AmChams work very closely with the U.S. government, and I know that that's true here in Sri Lanka. The relationship between the United States and Sri Lanka, especially commercially, is very strong, and I think will get even stronger in the years ahead.
You're also the chairman and founder of the American Chamber of Commerce in Mongolia, Mr. Cox. What changes do you see from the systems in Mongolia and even Sri Lanka for that matter?
Well, it's very interesting. Mongolia transitioned from a communist country back in the 1990s when the Soviet Union fell apart, and they made a very strong decision 25 years ago for democracy and free markets. And of course, there have been ups and downs in Mongolia's transition, but they have remained committed to democracy and have remained committed to free markets. The AmCham there is to build a bridge between policymakers and the private sector, and really looking for specific ways to make the business environment better and to make America's commercial partnership stronger. The AmCham in Mongolia has been around for about 4 years. It's doing a great job. I'm proud of the growth and the role that they are playing there. And I think when you look at the next 25 of Mongolia's history of its transition, you'll see that AmCham will have played a very, very critical role at the development of the country.
Here in Sri Lanka, what sort of role do you see that AmCham playing, especially in a time where Sri Lanka is marking 6 years following the end of the conflict?
Well, again, AmCham in Sri Lanka is doing a great job. I had the honor of participating in their annual general meeting yesterday, so I had an opportunity not only to meet the leadership of the organization, but also its members. And so it makes me very optimistic about the role that AmCham Sri Lanka will be playing here in the country. You know, there's a feeling of real optimism about the elections that happened earlier this year in January and again in August. And I think it's the optimism is a chance to renew American commercial commitment to the country. We heard from the U.S. ambassador yesterday, who was also very optimistic. And so it really shows you what can happen when there's good leadership, good decisions from the Sri Lankan people, good leadership both in businesses and organizations and in government. And when you have a strong private sector ready to innovate and to grow. And so I feel very strong about what the AmCham will be doing here in the future.
On the 8th of January this year, there was change in Sri Lanka. There was a new government on the 17th of August. Again, as you said, there was an election and there was a new government again being appointed, the coalition government in Sri Lanka. How positive is this to the way forward as far as Sri Lanka is concerned?
Well, I think everyone is looking forward. That's been my experience here the last couple of days, and looking forward with a lot of optimism. Elections aren't just about outcomes. They're also about process. And so I think Sri Lanka should be congratulated on the process of elections. I'm not going to get into the outcome of the elections because I don't vote here. I'm a visitor here. But because of the process, I think that there is a real hope that that people can look forward, and looking forward to opportunity with the United States and with other partners, and really growing. I work and cover a lot of countries in the region. One that comes to mind that has experienced conflict in the past is Cambodia. More Cambodians, because of it's a young population, there are more Cambodians alive today and coming of the voting age that were born after the conflict than before the conflict. And the young people are looking for leadership. They're looking for opportunities. They're working hard for their education, and they want to do something with that education. They want jobs. They want good jobs. And I think that's where things like democracy and elections really matter, and government leadership really matters. But then bringing leadership from the private sector around the table is also very, very important, because at the end of the day, if there aren't jobs and opportunities being developed, then what good is the change for?
Ms. Cox, there have been many allegations against the previous regime with regard to its conduct, with regard to its human rights records, so on and so forth. If there needs to be change in the investment climate in Sri Lanka, what sort of changes do you foresee?
Well, investors want predictability and they want stability. They want stability in policy and they want stability in politics. And so I think that is the case for Sri Lanka, and that's the case everywhere. Let me tell you about the trends of investment and trade in the region. You have a few examples of countries in the Asia-Pacific region that are holding on to protectionist policies, high tariffs, hard to bring trade in and out of the country. That's really not the future.
What is the future?
The future is tearing down barriers for trade and knocking tariffs down, and also creating rules-based agreements. Right now, in the region,
Isn't that a bit manipulative in terms of governance, Mr. Cox?
Well, I don't know in which way manipulative you mean. It's happening as we talk right now. The Trans-Pacific Partnership is being negotiated. They're in the final stages. It's an agreement between 12 Asia-Pacific countries. They are meeting in Atlanta, hopefully finalizing it this week. Besides TPP, which is the largest free trade agreement in history, you have Australia negotiating with India. Australia has just wrapped up free trade agreements with Japan and Korea and China. You have a tripartite free trade agreement that's being negotiated between Japan, Korea, and China. And even big economies like Japan have concluded free trade agreements with little economies like Mongolia. This is what's happening in the region right now, tearing down barriers for trade. The old walls of protectionism is not the future. And protectionism does not create opportunities for growth. Finding markets for small businesses, not only domestically but around the world, is where things are going. And so it's not manipulative at all to suggest that that's what's happening.
There's a general notion in Sri Lanka that many companies, many U.S. companies, many companies in Australia, India, so on and so forth, are trying to infiltrate Sri Lanka and trying to gain momentum and trying to exploit Sri Lanka's opportunities and labor. How do you counter this allegation?
Well, I would say words like exploit would not be the words that I would use. I see American companies looking all over the world, and they go where policies are stable. They go where the workforce is educated and prepared for the jobs of not only today but for tomorrow. And so those are opportunities. That American companies invest in places, and when they invest, standards rise, the protection of environment, the protection of labor, the protection of intellectual property, that all improves when the environment allows, the policy environment allows for American investment.
In order to gain momentum, in order to look into the possibility of moving forward, Sri Lanka needs to attract foreign direct investments. How important is this government to change its current policies that was adopted by the previous regime and move forward and attract FDIs?
Well, I think if you look around the region, not only Sri Lanka is dealing with this issue of needing to attract foreign direct investment. I'm not going to get into specifics with what Sri Lanka needs to change. What I will say is that if the country is not happy with the amount of foreign investment right now, then it probably does need to change some policies and I would think there should be very strong consultation with the private sector on how to do that and what specifically needs to be done. But what foreign investors, I think, appreciate more than anything is a commitment to reform, a commitment to deregulation, making doing business easier, so a good business enabling environment. How easy is it to start a new business? How easy is it to import goods and services into the country? How easy is it to export goods and services from a country? Transparency is important. Just a framework that's easy to do business. If it hasn't been done so already, a lot of those issues should be reviewed and a roadmap for reform should be taken. Just two examples, Thailand and Indonesia. They both each are great countries with strong economies, but also with some very tough protectionist policies. And both governments have said recently that they need to reform and that they are interested in, at least Thailand is interested in exploring joining TPP, which would require major domestic reform. And again, this goes back to what the trend is in the region. The trend for trade is free trade and fair trade, and where you reduce tariffs, you develop rules-based agreements that are high standard and rules based on the 21st century.
The involvement of Chinese companies and Indian companies in the region, especially in Asia, does this concern American companies?
Not at all. Not at all. Look, we, as chairman of APCAC, I would always say that American companies are going to be the best partners. They offer the best technology, the best innovation, the best standards and quality. But we're all in this together.
So you're a salesman, in other words, if I say that. Am I right when I say that?
Sure. I'm a salesman for American commerce, and I'm a salesman for American partnerships. And I think that's the best model. Look, I live in Mongolia. We don't have many American companies that have set their, planted their flag in Mongolia. It's a small market. It's got a weak infrastructure. So the best model in a lot of countries is through partnerships, where you bring together good American companies that offer services and products and marry those with good domestic companies. And through that partnership, you see real advances in terms of bringing up standards, the education of the workforce, and that type of thing. So that's what I'm a salesman for, and I don't apologize for that at all.
Private sector is the engine of growth, Mr. Cox. So you said that earlier as well in one of my questions. You said private sector needs to engage more with respective governments. How important is it for governments across the region, especially in Asia, to focus on this and ensure that the private sector really moves forward with government enterprises?
I think it's very important. I'm a big believer in the multilateral platforms like ASEAN and APEC and others. Sri Lanka should be seeking a seat at as many of these platforms as possible, especially the ones that involve the United States. I really believe that. Each of these platforms have a strong private sector committee component to it, where you bring together the CEOs, of Sri Lankan businesses together with the CEOs of the other businesses in the region. AmChams play in this space as well. AmChams, APCAC, for instance, will be hosting our regional business summit in Beijing in April. And we will bring together the American businesses and local businesses that work with American companies. We'll be bringing everyone together in Beijing to talk about regional policy priorities. That interaction, I think, is very important. Sharing experiences, sharing best practices, getting ideas on how to make the business environment better in each country is nothing bad can come from that. So I'm a big believer and a big advocate in countries and governments participating in multilateral platforms and making sure that they carve out time for the private sector.
Mr. Cox, with regard to positioning Sri Lanka in the world map in terms of business and FDIs and investment climate, so on and so forth, where do you see Sri Lanka in the next few years?
Well, I see it growing. I have a very strong sense of optimism from my visit here. And I think a lot of that optimism is a result of the changes that have taken place here very recently. I would encourage Sri Lanka to take advantage of this time. As we say, I'm from Tennessee, you have to make hay while the sun is shining. And the sun is shining in Sri Lanka right now. Make the most of this opportunity. The conversations that I have that inspire me the most and that give me the optimism about the future here are the conversation like I had last night with an older gentleman who has a company that's been working here for a long time. But he's telling me about his son who's developed an app and will be going to New York to launch and release this app that is going to have global implications. That's reason to celebrate. That is young people in Sri Lanka using their education, using their technology, using not being confined to Sri Lanka, but seeing the world as a stage for their ingenuity and for their products. And if you can take that spirit and build on it, there's no reason why you shouldn't be optimistic about the role that Sri Lanka is playing in the world. I would always encourage an all-of-the-above approach to Sri Lanka's development policy. Education, infrastructure, a good business environment, trade policies that are modern and that reduce tariffs. It should be an all-of-the-above approach and one that is forward-looking. And if that's what happens here, I don't see any reason why you can't see the growth that people really expect.
Concerns of the business community in America to invest in Sri Lanka. Are there any concerns?
No, I don't think so. I think the biggest challenge is just an awareness challenge. People need to know about Sri Lanka in America. They need to know what opportunities are here. And that's where AmCham comes in. It has already led one delegation with your Minister of Finance to the United States and has started a very important dialogue with the private sector in the United States. The AmCham will continue to build on the success of that previous trip, and they will be doing more of that, but it really involves fostering communication, fostering relationships. And I know that the AmCham here in Sri Lanka, working with the U.S. Chamber in Washington, the commercial service of the U.S. Embassy, all of those components working together will be able to solve that awareness challenge and get and identify real opportunities for American companies to partner here.
Are you a Republican or a Democrat?
Well, that's a very difficult question for me to answer. I'm on a personal journey as an American.
2016 presidential elections in the U.S. On a lighter note, who will secure victory? Is it going to be the Republicans or the Democrats?
It's a long time before the election, and I have a policy not to make predictions about this. Anything can happen between now and next November. Right now, I'm very confused.
Clinton a stronger candidate for the Democrats?
Well, Clinton will be a strong candidate. If Biden enters the race, it's going to be very exciting. I think that what's happening in the United States right now is fascinating, because 6 months ago, I would have said the election would have been between Jeb Bush and Hillary Clinton. And I think what you have right now is a lot of people in the United States stepping back and saying, do we really want to go with that? Do we want to try something new? And as Sri Lanka proved earlier this year, and again in August, who ultimately holds the power are the voters, and that will the voters will decide these questions next year.
Will there be a change of policy if the Republicans are appointed as take the post of presidency in the U.S.?
Policy towards foreign policy? Yeah, no, there'll be changes. If the Republicans take over, there'll be changes. I think so. The Republicans right now are criticizing Obama for not being strong enough abroad, whatever that means. I think that President Obama has done a fantastic job. He's led on trade. Without President Obama's leadership, TPP would not be as far along as it is. But if there is a change in government, regardless of whether it's going to be a Democrat or Republican, there will be changes, and we'll wait to see what that looks like.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cox, for joining us right here.
Thank you.
Biz1st in Focus. Pleasure to have you on board.
Thank you. Great to be here.